Today is a beautiful Thursday morning, October 22nd, 2020. We're at St. Patrick's Cemetery in Gallitzin. And you can see, so far I've been pretty fortunate with the weather. Promises to be very similar to yesterday. Indian summer day, temperatures in the 70s. But up here it's a bit over 2,000 feet above sea level, so it might be just a little bit cooler, but still comfortable. We're now at Gallitzin Tunnel Park at the summit of the grade. We're a little over 2,200 feet here, but it's still pleasant. No wind. This is the only position light signal I've seen on this trip. It's on display at Tunnels Park. Nice old Pennsylvania Railroad caboose on display here. Note the portholes. It's a rather less than ideal sun angle though. You can get a much better view of the caboose. We have a westbound that's coming out of the tunnel, but I'm pointing to the west because the sun angle is very severe. Gonna come right out from under us and round the curve. Right here at the west end of the tunnel portals is the Tunnel Inn Bed and Breakfast, a rail fan accommodation. Even has a balcony in the back, and you can see the trains are clearly visible coming out of the tunnel. And even during the pandemic, it's open for business. Balcony. was train 25Z en route from Crescent to Chicago, cresting the grade. In this age of welded rail, it's nice to hear that clickety-clack. Tracks 3 and 2 pass by underneath this bridge. Track 1, which is the steeper grade, is a little ways to the south. The place I had to stop and take a look at, although I don't think I'm going to hang around here too much because of nearby barking dogs and trespassing on railroad property and the bad sun angle. This is UN interlocking. Tracks 3 and 2 pass by here, and there's a track that veers off to the right. It is used for helper locomotives to cut off of trains at the top of the grade, and they go around that track and go back over to track 1 and head back east again. You can see that track coming off of tracks 2 and 3. And it veers around over to track 1 by the old AR Tower, looking east up the hill towards the town of Gallitzin. The position light signals are all gone. You notice that chirping sound you can hear in the background coming from my scanner? I have it tuned to the front end telemetry frequency. This is the frequency that aids me in any approaching trains. Once you start to hear that thing chirping on the scanner, something isn't too far away, but on some locomotive, that telemetry device is going crazy. Must be in the helper terminal nearby at Crescent on one of the locomotives. Now we're further west at Crescent. We're just east of the Route 53 overpass, and you're looking at 5 tracks going up the grade to the east. We're by SIP 249.4. There used to be a signal bridge on tracks 3 and 2 over there. Get a good view of trains here, and trains going uphill are really working past this point. I'm standing on an old bridge abutment for the highway. And 9:47 a.m., that was the eastbound Pennsylvanian en route from Pittsburgh to New York, passing under the Route 53 overpass. A very busy highway. As you can see, it's another wonderful day here. I've really been blessed. I thank God for that. You notice there's still some decent color up here, but at the high elevation, it's more vulnerable to wind and rain. And some of these trees have already lost their leaves, so it's not quite as colorful as it is at the lower altitudes, but it's still decent. But this area is definitely a magnet for rail enthusiasts from around the world. In fact, about 10 or 15 years ago, I was standing at this exact spot, and about 5 or 6 guys came up to me, and all of them were German railroad employees who run the high-speed trains at 188 miles an hour. They were absolutely fascinated by these long freight trains. Eastbound approaching at 10:15, working up number 1 track. A lot of gondola cars, empty for the most part. Saw a couple of Norfolk and Western lettered gondolas. Long train. Had an ES-44DC as the DPU unit. Might be 36A from Conway to Enola, but he didn't have any John Deere tractors on it. The time is 10:30. We're further west at Crescent, where the helper terminal is. And you can see the signal gantry minus position lights as we have a westbound coming down the grade. This colorful location is MO Interlocking. There used to be a tower here by that name, but it was torn down. There was even an overpass here for a railroad line that went north, but that was torn down as part of the double stack clearance project in the 90s. And over there is the helper terminal at Crescent. And I don't see any power here, meaning they're probably all in Altoona assisting westbounds. That's a good sign for westbound traffic. Well, they also use them on eastbounds. Some of them go all the way to Pittsburgh, but most of them go to the Johnstown area to shove eastbounds. And I'm going to try to visit most, if not all, of those locations today. And a Sperry rail service car is sitting here in the yard. That white building is an NS office, and it seems like that area is always bathed in foliage in October. Line going off to the north there, you see the car going over a railroad crossing. The former Conrail secondary track, now owned by R.J. Corman. Found on number 1 track at 11:05. Helpers. Moving pretty fast. I think he's going down to Altoona to assist a westbound. Another famous railroad B&B, the Station Inn, but looks like it's closed. Either it's closed for COVID or only open on the weekends. Looks like a dwarf signal from the old B&O. I know I've seen these at Washington Union Station. Well, I went up on the porch and found this neat collection of license plates. You can see the porch. Get a nice ringside seat of the railroad from here. I've stayed here twice. Don't usually like to come here in the summertime because of the lack of air conditioning. 25 years ago almost, my wife and I stayed here for our honeymoon, just one night in around Thanksgiving weekend. And I remember calling the innkeeper here, Mr. Long, and telling him my wife and I were coming here for a honeymoon, and he panicked. He was aghast. Oh my God, I don't want any bad scenes, any screaming, yelling, riots. Apparently he's had some bad experiences with honeymooners. This is not exactly the Waldorf Astoria, but my wife enjoyed it. We had a good time. I remember it was November 95, around November 20th, and there was a foot of snow on the ground here. That was one of the worst winters we ever had, the 95-96 winter. At 11:19, approaching westbound is train 25V. en route from Elizabethport, New Jersey to Chicago. Carries a lot of steamship company containers, and one of the commemorative DC to AC locomotives is on this. Very colorful train. That SD70 ACU will likely stay on that train as far as maybe SO or Connemara, east of Johnstown. Time is 11:40 in the morning. I moved further west of Crescent, in one of my favorite places to hang out, Connie's Crossing. The only grade crossing west of Altoona than to well past Johnstown. I can hear a distant rumbling to the west. Got an eastbound at 11:56 a.m. coming up the grade. You saw a barrage of steamship company containers on that train. The last one was Hawaiian. We have an eastbound at 12:20. Light engines. Lily has some of the best fall foliage on the west slope. This area right here I'm pointing is usually full of color, but a lot of the leaves are blown off already. But there's still some good shots to be had here. And we're further west at the Cassandra crossing trestle over the main line through a deep cut. We're working on track number 1 here. Got an eastbound on number 2. Eastbound at 1247. And that's Hotshot 20K from Chicago to Crescent, one of the hottest eastbounds on this line. Not sure exactly what they're doing on number 1 track, but I see some aluminum foundations on the side of the right-of-way to the left. By at 1258, had a nice K5 LLA horn on the lead unit. It's a garbage train out of New Jersey headed for Ohio, and that train certainly didn't smell like any fresh petunias. Here westbound at 135, this should be the 21G, the JB Hunt Express from Harrisburg to the BNSF in Chicago, where it becomes BNSF symbol QNYC LAC6. ways west of the Jamestown Road overpass, just in time for this eastbound on number 2 track. Used to be signals here, but they're gone now. Light signals in the eastward direction, mounted right on this bridge span here. You can see the brackets with nothing on them. This train is a monster. He's still going around the curve down in the distance in Portage. Notice in the distance a track that comes in on the right. That's a secondary track that serves a coal mine nearby. Manifests, but it must not have been very heavy. It was very long, but made it up without any helpers or DPUs. Train had SD70 ACEs on each end of that lash up, making a lot of noise. If you wanted to get a free ride to Altoona, just jump on board one of those cars. We're further west at Wilmore in a little private access road. Got a meeting of intermodal trains. Didn't get the eastbound, but the westbound that was hidden behind it was 21E en route from Morrisville, Pennsylvania to Willow Springs, Illinois. There's a landmark in these parts, a mail pouch tobacco barn. It's faded. There's a few of them around this part of the country. We're now further west at Summerhill, Pennsylvania. There used to be a signal bridge here right before that box on the right, but that box has replaced it. SIP 263.8. 20 p.m. The traffic on this line's been very fluid today. Got an eastbound stack train. He's coming up the grade. He's moving at a pretty decent clip. Well, that was train 20Q from Chicago to Morrisville, Pennsylvania. Should have 21J coming westbound pretty soon. Finally got a westbound here at 316. Kind of taking it easy going down number 3 track. I believe that might have been 21J from Rutherford to Chicago. He had mostly domestic containers, but he did have a few UPS ones at the rear. And we're back east at the cute little town of Lilly. Some of the best foliage on the west slope is located, as you can see. And eastbound would look mighty good here. Now westbound wouldn't look quite as bad either. Got a westbound coming down number 2 track at 416. Odd helper consist. He had an ET44AC and an SD70 ACC. 23Z is having some problems up in Crescent. He should be along soon, hopefully. And I heard the dispatcher talking to an eastbound. At 425, 23Z is creeping west on number 3 track. You can hear his dynamic brakes on his GEs. He had some kind of problem in Crescent, not exactly sure what, but Typically monstrous train, but it's one of the hotter trains. He carries UPS containers and trailers. He was communicating with his rear end helpers, and the train, for the PTC purposes, had to pass a train length before the train could pick up speed. So that took a long time with that long consist. Beautiful view from a nearby cemetery. Five o'clock and all is well. Waited an hour and a half for that eastbound, but it was worth the wait. And our last eastbound intermodal was 24Z, en route from Chicago to Croxton, New Jersey. Under Conrail, that was the old TV 204, but that train didn't run through here. But it serves the same purpose as that train did, delivering containers to New Jersey from Chicago. And it's 5:15 in the evening, a beautiful day, a beautiful evening. We'll spend the remainder of the daylight hours catching a few trains at this wonderful location. Got a westbound coming. train 19G en route from Oak Island to Conway. That's actually a combination of two old trains. The original 19G, which was much shorter, and the 11J, an auto rack train from Doremus Avenue in Newark to somewhere out in Ohio. Those two trains are combined. I counted, not including the DPU, 155 cars and a lot of long auto racks on the tail, so that train had an awful lot of feet on it. And 5:42 p.m. here comes Amtrak Pennsylvanian from New York to Pittsburgh. Should have number engine 96 on the point, I think. For the last few days, it's been 96 and 99 powering the Pennsylvanians. Time is 5:48 p.m. Here comes one of the hottest trains on Norfolk Southern, train 21M, en route from Croxton to Chicago with Western connections. Train 21M on Norfolk Southern performs the same function that CSX's Q003 performs, bringing hot traffic from New Jersey to Chicago with Western connections. Both of those trains are spawned from the original Conrail TVLA. That was Conrail's hottest train. Time is 6:30 p.m. The sun has set several minutes ago, ending a glorious day on this NS Pittsburgh line in the Altoona area. Tomorrow I'm going to be heading home, but not before visiting a number of places on the Pittsburgh line east of Altoona and west of Harrisburg. It's been a glorious trip thus far. Beautiful autumn foliage and good action on Norfolk Southern.